Hey everyone, can you hear me at the back? Yeah, cool. Okay, this is my talk, JavaScript and Browser Automation. It's a technical talk, and I assume, has everyone here used JavaScript? Cool, a few. Okay, that's most people, so that's good, because it is a kind of technical talk with code examples. I've got a few about me slides, but I'll keep it short because it's not so interesting. I was at Shazam for a good 5 years, which is where I actually learned a lot of what I know about browser automation. I've now moved on to Springer Nature, and rather than talking about foosball and pizza, because who cares, I would say things I like are that people leave on time. Hack days are actual hack days, or at least how I envision it. So rather than just having to fix technical debt, you actually get to grow your skill set. And we've got tons of open source stuff, so go and check it out if you're interested. We are hiring. Don't apply to them. Tell me so I can get that referral bonus. If you see the camera and you're wondering, I don't really know. It's just a thing that I do. So I was at Smash and Conf, and they recorded a video of me, like you do at a conference. But then I recorded a video of them, sort of thing, and I sync the two together. And I still don't know why I do these things. So as already mentioned, I won't go on about that too much. I've got this developer tips newsletter. If you're interested in Chrome DevTools in any way, shape, or form, do subscribe. I work pretty hard on it, and it's got a bunch of GIFs showcasing workflows in DevTools. So hopefully you'll find that useful, even as QA people or developers, whatever it is. Cool. The goal of this talk is not necessarily testing focused. It's a browser automation focus, but in JavaScript. And yeah, we'll just go over a few tools currently out there that can hopefully help you achieve browser automation goals. And then finishing off at the end, which is why I came a bit late today. I got in a bit late this morning. Chrome recently announced some new debugging features, and I'm going to show you how to use them for debugging your tests. And this is brand new, still in Canary. Why JavaScript? I don't want to preach to the choir here because, you're all at this talk, so you all obviously care about JavaScript. But long story short, growing ecosystem. If you look at the most starred projects on GitHub, they are almost all in JavaScript. And I wouldn't have said this a while back because JavaScript was a bit weird and maybe still is, depending on what browsers you have to support. But it's actually got really nice syntax. You've got the fat arrow function. You've got destructuring, which looks a bit weird at first, I agree, but it actually allows you to do some pretty cool things in a very elegant way. By the way, at the back, I'm assuming you might struggle to see some of the slides, so I'll publish these online shortly afterwards. You've got async await, and this is where it gets really useful for writing browser automation tests. Now, in the past, I'm guessing most people have seen syntax like this, where you have a browser.getTitle, and in Ruby, or another language, that would be a synchronous operation, that would be blocking. In JavaScript, it's asynchronous, which means which means it doesn't block, and line number 2 will execute regardless of line number 1 having completed or not, which is really annoying. And it means you have to put these callbacks everywhere, and then you put a callback within a callback, and you get into callback hell, and so on. They try to fix this with promises, which gets you a step closer to the more elegant syntax. But again, it's still a callback. Async await, however, is pretty sweet. At least I think so. Because it allows you to say, await, asynchronous operation. And then that's it. Oh, yeah? Shall we take questions at the end, or is it a quick one?
Yeah, what you want.
Go on. Is it a quick one? Yeah.
Well, this is more like a new JavaScript functionality. But you also got the libraries, NPM packages. Just write your code in ES5 and with the NPM package async await. What do you prefer?
Oh, so the question is about kind of how to get this working, because it's not supported natively. And I'm going to show that in a sec.
Okay.
So it turns out that you can get this working natively as of, I'd say, a few weeks ago. Yeah. We'll have a look at it. I use Babel personally for transpiling. But we'll have a look. You've got template strings, so no more having to concatenate a million strings together. You can finally just do string interpolation with these backticks. If you see, I don't know how well you can see these code snippets at the back. Cool. And then, of course, there's, it sounds obvious, but you have front-end developers working on your website already. So why not also have them work on tests? Maybe it makes sense. Cool. To get into the flow of things and to get a feel for things, I'm not going to start out with evaluating different browser automation tools like what we're going to do in a second, but rather we're just going to take a look at a few short recipes, again, purely just to get into the feel of things. Picked one at random, counting Wikipedia links. So if we go to Wikipedia and we look at the source code of the page and we count the number of internal Wikipedia links, I decided to write that in WebDriver, and I thought we'd have a look at how to do that. You start out by installing Selenium WebDriver. These are the native or official JavaScript bindings for Selenium WebDriver. You require it in your node file, just a simple require statement. And then I'm sorry to show kind of boring code examples. Don't pay attention to it. There's no significance. It's just for completeness, and because it's the first section of this talk, I wanted to show it all. But yeah, you go through this particular API, I guess. I don't know why it's like this, but you call that and you set up your browser. You then say browser.get, and we go to Wikipedia. And finally, this is where it gets a bit interesting. We await for browser.findElements. In the past, that would have been like browser.findElements.then, and you give a callback, if that makes sense. But now you just say await. We get the links, and then finally, to actually achieve the goal that we had, we console log links.length. And if you run that in your terminal with node wiki.js, you get 396. That's how many links there are. And again, there's no significance to that. I just wanted to get into the flow of things. This one is really interesting. This is getting to philosophy in Wikipedia. Maybe some people know of it already. Okay, how it works is, if you go to a Wikipedia article, you can click on the very first link of any Wikipedia article out there, or at least 99% of them. And it turns out, if you carry on doing that repeatedly, you'll end up in philosophy. And I don't know, that was fascinating to me, and I thought it'd be cool to write a little WebDriver script because, like you do on a Friday evening. So that's what I did. I'm kidding. No, I'm not kidding. So Wikipedia has this special random URL. So we start at that, and we then say, by the way, the goal of this is to show you how simple this is. We say browser.get, and we give it the random URL, and we say click first link. Click first link doesn't exist, we define it. And all it does is it says, find the selector, which is representing the first hyperlink in a Wikipedia article, and call browser.click. We then have a simple if statement that says, if link text, which you can get from saying link.get attribute, and then in the parentheses you say inner text. I forgot to include that bit. If it's philosophy, job done. You've solved your goal. If it's not, continue doing it. So it's being done in a recursive fashion. Yes. I thought the video wouldn't work on this resolution, but it does. It looks a little like this. I run this for so long, you have no idea. But it's kind of interesting. And again, my personal reason for doing this was just because I was interested. My reason for showing you is because, again, this is a browser automation talk. It's not all about testing. I wanted to hopefully show you different use cases for why you might want to automate the browser. That's great, from Serbia to mathematics to philosophy. Okay, and then we're going to now move on to an example which will be a bit more prevalent throughout the rest of this talk, and it's the famous Google search example. I know we all know it, I guess, or a lot of us know it. And we're going to use this example to try out different frameworks or browser automation tools, and you're going to be like, oh, so using Selenium WebDriver, that's how you'd write it, or using a Nightwatch, that's how you'd write it. I know we all know this, but just to be very clear, we go to Google, we type in Selenium conf, click on the first result, and then we're looking at the title of the page. That's it. That's my little use case to try out these various. Sorry, that text is a bit faded out, but it's basically showing the title of the page. Okay, so that's our goal, and we're going to recreate that in code. So using the official bindings, I'm going to go through this very quickly because we've already seen this sort of API a few times now. Browser.get. You then have the browser.findElement. In this case, I'm finding the input, and I'm typing in send keys to send a keyboard input. We then find the element, and the element that we have to find is this little search button they've got on the page, and we click it. Okay, and then we say we define a selector for a hyperlink containing the website to seleniumconf.co.uk, and we have to wait for it, because it turns out that at least when I was doing it, they were doing a little thing where they were delaying the results. I assume it was taking a bit of time to load, so they load the page and then load the results slightly after, hence the wait. Okay, and so this bit is like defining the selector that's being waited for, but then we actually have to wait for it. So, whoops. Then we say browser.wait, and finally we click on the link. And then, I know it's a lot of code, sorry. It's really simple, actually. We just await browser.getTitle. That's it. Cool. And then so one of the guys in the audience was asking about like how I use that async await syntax, because it's not exactly supported. Well, it turns out if you install Node.js 7, you can run it with a Harmony async await flag, which maybe people feel funny about because it's like, why is it a flag? I would say that async await it is a real thing already. It's in Canary at least, and possibly Chrome Stable in the next few weeks. So, I mean, I personally love it. I've found no problem, so give it a try. And yeah, that's how you do it in Selenium WebDriver. I wanted to show errors because it turns out that a lot of what we do when we write browser automation scripts is we develop them. You don't just write them and then like never touch them again. It turns out you have to maintain them because websites change and your automation scripts will likely fail after a while. So they need maintaining. And because we develop on these, errors will arise every now and then. Sometimes you'll put in a dodgy selector. Sometimes the website will change its markup. So I wanted to showcase what happens in like a few examples of errors and how that's like manifested to you, the developer, in the terminal. If you forget the URL, it looks like this. So it's not. I mean, there's a lot of noise, and for something so low level, to be honest, it's exactly what I'd expect. Fortunately, it has got the error, so it's not like it's not showing us the error. Also, if you, like, I malformed the CSS selector that I used to see what sort of error I'd get. And again, it's a bit of noise. My eyes aren't drawn to a particular message. So yeah, that's what it looks like. And if I throw a custom error, so a lot of people here have used JavaScript, so if you type in throw new error, it looks a little like this. So yeah, we'll see what various frameworks offer in terms of error reporting to you in a second. So the good and bad points, in my opinion, one of the best parts about it is it's backed by the core team. In fact, there are people at this conference, I think, who work on this. So having the official JavaScript bindings for something is a pretty big deal. Lots of documentation, lots of reading material. What else? Promise manager. Yeah, I'm not going to go into this too much. We can talk after. But they're doing something funny when it comes to queuing calls to the browser up. So if you say browser.findElement and browser.click, they'll actually queue those up. Even JavaScript natively wouldn't do that. And so it seems that they're messing around with some of the queuing and control flow behavior. And then finally, the last point, which was a bit of a deal breaker, is it was just not very pleasant to look at in the terminal. And that's nothing bad to say against the project. It's like my personal feelings. Okay, moving on. We've got Dalek.js, which is pretty cool. Got a fancy website, lots of interesting pictures. Code looks a little like this. Can you see that? Yeah. So they've adopted that sort of training syntax where you say test.open.click.findElement, and yeah, I guess they're trying to make it a fluent API. The console output is definitely really nice. I like it. Oh no, is the contrast a bit? The slides will be online, so you can check these out. Point is, the terminal output was pretty nice. I ran this, and one of my goals when evaluating these different browser automation tools was I don't want to spend a long time getting them set up. So if something didn't work, I moved on to the next one. Turns out this didn't work, at least in Node 7. It just, I don't know, gave me lots of weird errors. That being said, I have used it in the past, and it was actually a joy to use. This was about 2 years ago now. So in case you're wondering like why I'm even mentioning that if it didn't work, it's again just to like give you feedback so you know, and maybe just so you're aware that it's a project that exists. And WebDriver IO, this has been around for ages. Also something I've used in the past. They've got they've got like a nice API. It's a very intuitive API. Again, it's training and it's fluent.
So .click and .url, you can call methods like that. They've got a GitHub page. They've got tons of like stars. Not that stars is an indicator of like how good a project is, but it's, you know, at the same time you want to do something that is kind of got that community backing. It was updated 23 minutes ago as of last evening, and the point is that they're like regularly working on it. That's the point I wanted to make, not the last time they committed to it. So that's good to see, and that kind of gives me some confidence. And if we implement that Google search demo, I do apologize about the code formatting. I had to change the resolution to get the text looking a bit bigger. Yeah, so the Google search demo, again, I'm not going to go through it line by line like we were in the past, but I'll keep it open for a few seconds. But yeah, you call a bunch of methods, you train it, you do the thing that you need to do. So again, it's fairly intuitive.
You use the Fluent API from WebDriver, how do you deal with the await? Because now you're using that.
Oh, how do you deal with await using the Yeah, so, okay.
Is there more struggle of the Fluent API they have, or?
Yeah, so this is actually the thing. I think I mentioned it in the pros and cons. This is one disadvantage for me, it's a personal disadvantage for Fluent APIs. Because the thing with Fluent APIs is they completely force you to chain.
Yeah.
If ever you want to just call get title and get the value, well, you can't, because often they don't use native promises, and async await relies on promises to be implemented under the hood. And a lot of these have just like, they've implemented these pretty APIs, you have to use it. And this is one example. So to answer your question, I haven't tried it, but I don't think you can use async await with this. And again, this is, I have a feeling it's Node because I'm using Node 7, but I didn't want to have to change my environment just to get it working. I wanted to only allocate a short period of time to evaluate these. Turns out that when it passes, it's great, but it also passes when things are not great. So when I threw custom JavaScript errors, got a, oh, you can't see it, but I actually got a 0 for a status code, exit code. In other words, it passed. So it was pretty much swallowing JavaScript errors. So that was an immediate no for me. I like ran away so fast in my mind. But yeah, things I don't like, having to call end. I think this is a practice that was very common in the past, and I get why you had to do it in JavaScript, but now I think it's an API we can get rid of and rely on more primitives in JavaScript. And of course, the swallowing JavaScript errors, that was a big no for me. The docs also show some older JavaScript syntax. They're using var instead of const, and const is now considered a best practice, or at least let. That being said, it's got a huge backing. They're working on it constantly, and I guess if you do invest a bit more time, you'll be able to actually get it working. So good and bad. WD.js is another one. I'm going to skim through this. It's on GitHub. This is one thing I really like, and it's a bit of shame that it's cropped out, but hopefully you can see the important keywords. They've actually used modern JavaScript syntax, which is really nice because they've been using it for at least a year, I would say, or they've supported it rather. You're still welcome to do callbacks. And long story short, this is using something called generators, which is kind of like, you can think of it as the JavaScript ecosystem started with callbacks, moved on to promises, kind of in parallel to that, it was touching generators, which is syntax like yield and this funny asterisk symbol next to the function keyword. So as weird as it might look, the point is they support it and it allows for a synchronous looking API. So no callbacks within a callback. And actually they've got like solid API documentation. Really impressive. So they've taken the whole JSON wire protocol and they've explained what they support, what they don't. So it's really clear. You don't need to, it's very unlikely you'll ever have to make a pull request to be like, hey, update your documentation. They seem to be on it really well. Testium, this is one by Groupon, and it's testiumjs.com. Pretty normal. It's on NPM. Again, it's got this API that we've seen like for the 5th time now. Navigate to .click, .close window. So pretty nice. They blogged about it as well. It's by Groupon. Kind of interesting. But one possible concern is that it was last updated 1 year ago now. And yeah, it's not clear what's happening with this project. That being said, I did use it and it worked very well. So I did that same Google search example that we were having a look at. So yeah, browser.navigate to, browser.type, Selenium conf, and you pass the selector as well. And again, it works. It looks a little like this. Sorry again about the contrast. But yeah, if I throw an error, if I malform the selector, like I've done in this case, it tells me what went wrong. That's good. And also it does automatic screenshot generation, which I really liked. I like having tools where out of the box, it kind of does sensible defaults. It's always a bit cumbersome, at least for me, like having to read the documentation just to figure out how to do what I consider to be basic steps. So yeah, that was actually, like, even it had last been updated a year ago, it was actually pretty nice. I really liked it. Yeah, well, one possible disadvantage is they've got like a bunch of CoffeeScript examples, and I don't know, if you're not using it, I guess that's not so useful. Cool. There's Nightwatch, and we used a bunch of things at Shazam. This was one of the last things we used. It's really good. Like, it does the job. It's on GitHub. It's being actively maintained. They've got good documentation. Again, the exact same API that we've seen from other frameworks. So yeah, again, this is another one that works really well. But I've actually like cut out a bunch of tools, and maybe I'll put them back in my slides when I publish them online. But for the purpose of this talk, it wasn't worth like covering 100. Well, not really 100, it was like 10. But what I did do is I saved my favorite one for last, of course, and it's called Test Cafe. This is a very new one. It was only announced like maybe a month ago. Very recent. They have been working on it before that. So again, same as always, it's on GitHub. They've got documentation. They've even got like a Twitter account, and it's all good. But how does it work? Well, it turns out, first of all, their documentation shows modern JavaScript syntax. So this was like this kind of immediately instilled confidence, because I was like, okay, so they're keeping up to date with the JavaScript community, which was important. They're using awaits in their docs. They're using ES7, possibly, whatever it is, imports. And yeah, they've even got a blog where they explain some of their thinking behind their point of open sourcing this. And by the way, I have no affiliation to this, and I would say they also have a paid version. So I don't know, their open source version seems to do exactly what most of us would want. But yeah. It works a little like this: npm install. It's on the npm registry. You then run Test Cafe, and it opens up this browser. It's pretty fast as well. And yeah, they've even got this like ginormous mouse so you can see what's going on. Yeah, it works. It has nice, pretty output. I like it. So again, that was new import syntax, which I really like. It enables you to import only the functions you need. We've never been able to do that before. And this is an interesting one. I needed to get the title. Now, everything else I've used, there's always been a function called getTitle. It was kind of interesting here, because I searched their code, scoured through, and I couldn't find any references to getTitle. And it turns out that they don't really want to provide these to you, and it's kind of for a good reason. It's because their point is, it's all JavaScript. Just execute it on the client, get the values you need, and bring it back to yourself. They're accepting it's their job to make this easy for you to use, but apart from that, like, write the code yourself. And I kind of like this mentality, actually. Because it means if the browser ever has here it's document.title, but what if it was document.referrer, right? You can actually get the referrer in JavaScript. Well, it turns out that you would have to, update the documentation, make a pull request, and actually get them to accept it. Or you just write your own snippet of JavaScript, so. This is how you actually go to URLs. Funny syntax here, in case you're wondering. These are called template tags. Because it looks a bit funny. There's no like parentheses or, this is valid JavaScript. Cool. And then finally, the actual Google search example that I keep going on about. So we've got the awaits, we've got the type text, .clicks. So again, exactly like we've seen before. One big difference is the ability to use await, and they support this out of the box. You don't have to use a transpiler. You don't have to use like a flag when you run Node. They'll compile this for you. Then there was my little terminal test to see how it, it's a bit of shame of the cropping. But yeah, oh no. Wait, hold on, let me zoom out. Okay, you can't see it, but on the left there's a bunch of pretty check marks, and again, like there always is. But the part that I really like is the error reporting, because the errors are like amazing. It's seriously, they set the bar for me so high that I'm going to use this to like judge other frameworks from now on. Because first of all, they don't pollute your terminal with a bunch of stack traces you don't care about, which is what I'm very used to, especially as a JavaScript developer. And second of all, they've actually like shown you the source code that you're writing. So it doesn't matter about the stack trace. What you really care about is your source code, and they'll annotate for you using this little red indicator and a little arrow, the line that caused the error. So in my opinion, this is perfect because my eyes, within like a second of seeing this, I'm kind of focused on the exact point where the error occurred. Whereas if you compare that with the Selenium WebDriver package, it's like you see a bunch of stack trace and you actually have to like manually read it to understand what's going on. So this was a big win for me. Cool. Yeah, I think I've already mentioned these pros and cons. Nice terminal output, really elegant API, good documentation. Possibly for you, you won't like this approach they've taken where they don't give you these utility functions like getTitle, so I don't know. And also it's a bit new. That doesn't mean it's bad. That's why I put a question mark, but it's just something to think about. You don't know where this project is going to be a year from now. But definitely like check it out if you haven't. Cool. I mentioned in the talk description we'll talk about scraping, so I made a little demo. If ever you want to do some web scraping, it's really easy now, especially if you're using JavaScript. So let's go to seleniumconf.co.uk. We'll pick out all the speaker names and we'll get them so we can do something else with it. The process, like my development process to accomplish this, is pretty straightforward and it's very intuitive as well, which I like. Go to DevTools. So open up the web page, go to DevTools. Start out doing this manually. Type in the JavaScript that you need to get all the speaker names. So in this case, I've got document.querySelectAll. And then I'm looping over each of those elements and I'm getting the inner text. And the result of that is an array of all the speakers. Okay. Now what's cool is you can take that function of speaker names and paste it directly in your test code, which is super cool. And this is a workflow which I really like. I love the fact that it's all JavaScript, and it just means that you're dealing with JavaScript data structures. So also what you get back is a JavaScript object, and you're not getting, you're not having to deal with serialization like you might in other languages. Cool. So we plop that function there, and then the one difference that you have to do, of course, you can't just execute it. You have to tell your test framework of choice, or your browser automation framework of choice, rather. You have to say, hey, this is a client function. Don't execute this in the test environment, execute this in the browser. So that's the one difference. But apart from that, everything's really sensible. So you define your function, and you say, oh wait, get speaker names. And that's basically it. Everything else is like import statements and kind of boilerplate code. But yeah, it's pretty nice. And of course, running that is very quick, very easy. Yeah, and then it's what you do with the data that you've scraped is up to you. But it's kind of interesting. Like I've been reading about a lot of startups that have basically been built upon scraping other websites and just providing that data in an easier to use interface. So yeah, I think web scraping is definitely an interesting use case of browser automation. A few tips and tricks. I'm thinking time, we might not go through each one of these, but maybe a few, we'll see. Okay, can you read that? The contrast is, sorry. This is a hyperlink. It's pointing to webdriver.js on GitHub. And the point that I wanted to mention to you is it's one giant file. Now, normally in the JavaScript community, you don't have one file for everything, but they kind of do. And I mean, the good or bad, that putting that aside, it's actually really useful because you can just search for anything. You can search for maximize or get text or get current URL, and it will be in this one file. So this file kind of acts as amazing documentation, and it's it's how I learned the API basically. Never sleep. So this is a JavaScript talk. and I know this is not related to JavaScript in any way, but I just thought I'd mention it because it's something I've seen a lot. I see a lot of test code out there using sleeps and pauses, and possibly other speakers will speak about this as well, but sleeps can be directly converted into wait for, and I would also challenge anyone to come up with a use case for sleep. Personally, I've not found one after quite a long time of writing tests, but yeah. Always force yourself to write errors. Throw JavaScript errors. Omit arguments from method calls. Do this up front is the point that I'm trying to make. The reason I suggest that is because down the line, you're going to be running these in some sort of build pipeline most likely, and down the line you will encounter genuine JavaScript errors. And having created and caused these errors up front, you're going to know how to pick these up a lot quicker. So again, I know this isn't specific to JavaScript, but these are just some tips I thought I'd quickly throw in at the end. Cool. It turns out WebDriver, in JavaScript at least, it supports proxying, and proxying is really cool. I've been playing around with it recently. And long story short, if you have, so you have Chrome, or you have whatever browser you're using to automate, it opens up. You can actually programmatically instruct it to point to a different web server and then, well, hit that web server to reach its original destination. And this is referred to as a thing in the middle. It's referred to as man in the middle. It should be person in the middle. But yeah, you can, it's really interesting. And there's a lot of interesting use cases. I found one on GitHub. It's called Node MITM proxy. You find that, and it works like this. Using Selenium WebDriver, by the way, this is the API they offer. You call setProxy, which is right here, and then you point it to this URL, point it to port 6000, and you also go to seleniumconf.co.uk in my case. Now, there's a lot of code here. You don't have to pay attention to it all. The important part is, in my proxy server, I say proxy.listen, and I open this magical port 6000, and it turns out Selenium will hit that every time it tries to make a network request. And then finally, in this case, again, don't focus on the code too much. The point is I'm giving this arbitrary string, and I'm injecting it into the website. But what's really cool about this approach is this isn't happening in JavaScript. So I'm not opening up the web page and using JavaScript to change the text. What's actually happening is over the network, I'm having this this thing in the middle that actually manipulates the network response. And use cases, well, there's scraping, I would say. So when I've done scraping in the past, always, JavaScript just gets in the way. I've never needed JavaScript to execute. So I would say if you want to do some form of scraping, consider just blocking the JS and CSS outright, because it might turn out that you don't need it, and yeah, it might work without it. And of course, there's the testing use case where if you're making AJAX requests, you might be hitting these whatever computationally expensive server APIs. Well, how about you don't hit that and just serve hard-coded data each time? So again, it depends on your use case. And of course, there's the learning use case, which is pretty much the ability to know how to construct or deconstruct rather HTTP and manipulate responses. It was quite interesting for me. I had to learn about unzipping programmatically, so that was quite cool. Nice. And again, not specific to JavaScript, just some things that I've learned personally. Code review, everything. As a team, we always code review our tests. We don't just do this for regular application level code. Because yeah, your tests are still code, so they still need linting, they still need pairing, they still need documentation. Yeah, a few extra considerations. I'm going to start moving a bit quicker now. Caching, you might want to investigate that. So using the Selenium WebDriver package, you can totally control how the browser treats caching. You can start with a fresh profile, and you can say, hey, clear the cache when you start up. You can also manipulate the screen dimensions or change the user agent. And these are all things, and more actually, that I've had to change in order to write effective tests. And when it comes to speed, the approach that I've personally taken, I thought I'd just share, is I just literally, it was really simple. I had one folder of priority 1 tests, ran those pre-deploy, so the deploy wouldn't happen without these priority tests running, and then priority 2, priority 3, whatever, they would just run at a later date. Cool. And also take the time to learn async. I guess a lot of you might already know it because people put their hands up for JavaScript. when I asked who's used it, but it's really worth understanding how things evolved, like how things went from callbacks to promises to async await, and even how they use generators. Cool. It turns out a lot of what I'm doing, some person wrote a blog post on, and I think it's a he compared all these different frameworks, Nightwatch, and a few others. He wrote the Google search example as well. Very similar to what this talk was. But yeah, I'll share these slides online so you can check it out. Cool. Okay, audience participation. What's the Wi-Fi? Do we have Wi-Fi? Oh, of course. And the password? SEConf16, like that. Thank you. Yes, okay. So is that? Yes. Okay, so just a very quick live demo. I'm really hoping this resolution is going to be okay. So I've got a little script, and let me just go to that. No, it's this one. Live demo. Okay, so I've got this little script, and that is way too small. Almost finished. So yeah, I'm calling browser.get. That is basically what it's doing. Okay, and I'm going to paste. Nope, that's not what I wanted. So I'm going to paste node -- inspect live demo. Okay, live demo is my script. -- inspect is this new really cool thing that I wanted to show you, and I'm almost done. So I'm going to copy this Chrome DevTools URL that it gives me. I'm going to open up Chrome, and I'm going to paste in that URL. Yes, that's working. And it turns out you can get all the logs that you would normally have in your script. I need to make that bigger. And it will log it for you in DevTools. So this is live Node.js debugging without a plugin, completely native to Node.js, and it just works. But what's really cool is, okay, this is a bit tricky. Okay, close that, open up live demo. You can browse your code. Can people read that at the back, this code? Yeah, maybe one bigger. Turns out you can live edit, which is ridiculous. So if I open up the instance, my live demo.js opens up google.com. I can just like live edit this, and I can type in browser.get. Let me go to my website. I can hit save, and it just goes to it. So this is live editing. We're actually live injecting code into a Node.js process, which is like insane. I was going to put the gif of the guy with the exploding and the fireworks, and anyway. I think this is amazing, and it's going to completely change the face of what it means to live debug and live edit your Node.js code. And just one last thing, please work. Yes, you can like just type in variables and inspect the current state of things, and again, that works. So you can inspect live variables in scope, and of course, you can also set breakpoints. So for me, this is great. If you want to try out Node.js 7, get Chrome Canary and run Node with the -- inspect flag. And shameless self-promotion, if you go to my website, I've explained exactly how to do this, which is tip number 119, live edit, running Node.js code with hot swapping. Okay, I'm running out of time, so thank you very much. That's my website, that's my Twitter. Thank you.